after lunch we're going to talk about the equipment and what it can do for you. Just quickly, how many of you here thought about the chairs you're going to sit on before you arrive today? That's exactly how we should think about EID, equipment. Because your chair is very important to how you're gathering information today, but none of you thought about it. Most of you thought about where you're going to sit, which is why I put 4 chairs along the front here, because now I get a new front row. Because I know no one sits in the front row. No matter how much they might like to, they still don't. Even Jets, who likes to sit in the front row, still didn't. We put 4 chairs down there just so that now I've got the front row. So, the equipment is exactly the same. The chair is a means to an end. The chair is what you use, you come, you sit on it and you get the information. The equipment is exactly the same. The challenge for us as an industry and early adopters, I am an early adopter. I'm someone who sees something new, flashing lights, bells and whistles, I want one. But if we actually critically look at it, are we interested in it for the right reasons? That's the process we want you to go through. That's why we give you that piece of paper right at the start, to look at what it is, what you're actually trying to achieve. Start with the why first before we worry about the what. When we start talking about equipment, tags. I'm going to pass these around so you can have a look at them. Now I'm quite happy to talk to any one of you. If you want to throw one into the back row, I'll send another one in a different direction. Any one of you and give you my independent thoughts on which tag will best suit your operation and what you're trying to do. We've got a whole range of them available. As Chris mentioned, the prices do vary a little bit from one day to the next, which is the cheapest from the cost neutral point of view. But they're all good tags. The 2-piece tags now are fairly outdated in terms of their use, and they're not as user-friendly. So personally, I'm not terribly interested in the 2-piece tags, but any one of the 1-piece tags are good tags. So have a chat to us. If you're looking for some advice, we've got tag guys here as well, so take your chance to have a look at these on here and go and have a talk to them. We've got a range of different applicators. So I meant to grab one of the Z-tag ones, but you've got single applicators or you've got multi-applicators. So applicators that we can do that. For those of you that have used the blue one from Allflex, who's used one of these, either this one or a blue one? Right, keep your hand up if you love it. Yeah, that's about what happens. 50-50 split. Sorry Jim. There's about a 50-50 split. People either love it or hate it. I used to use the blue one on the farm and I loved it, and if I gave it to anyone else working around the marking cradle, they all hated it. I don't know what they were doing wrong. I don't know how they weren't making it work, but there was a problem. So for some people, that will be a great thing. For others, single applicators will comfortably do the job for you. That one is the Shearwell one, and each company can show you their applicator. The reason I show you this one, just by by chance more than design, the shape of their tag makes it really easy to load that applicator. You grab the tag, you push it in with one finger and it snaps into position. Great simple applicator. You don't have to go to the fanciest one to get a good applicator. But there are options there. So talk to the different companies and have a look and see which tag is going to suit you best, or talk to us. Helen and I can talk you through the pros and cons of the tags as well. So when I started in this space, we had basically the stick reader that everyone was using was the Allflex yellow stick. Anyone used one? Yeah, did you love it? No, probably not. No, it was a pig of a thing. They were great because they were the first of the readers, but they weren't terribly reliable. They were fairly expensive, about $2,500 for a stick reader, and all it did was read a tag number and either store it on the stick or send it to another device. So they were the first version of stick readers. I'll come back to what panel readers are and how they work, but that one there is a panel reader. So we've got 2 distinct types of reader: a stick reader that you hold, or a panel reader that we mount on something. In terms of stick readers, we had this massive explosion of stick readers. The technology has come through thick and fast in the last 2 or 3 years. So if we look at any one of the stick readers, I haven't got enough hands, but the difference in stick readers now is we can send data to them. So that's what I was describing to you earlier about me having already made a decision on some animals. I send the data to the stick, so as I walk down the race, I read its tag and it will tell me something about that animal. So my little toy sheep I've got up here have got a tag inside them, a transponder. So if you grab these readers, this one's not actually loaded up with it at the moment, if you grab any of the others, you'll see that when you read their tag, it will tell you something on the screen. Now, it can be anything. It might tell you that its peak status was a 1 or a 2 or a 3. Or in the ones I've got set up, one of them it says always twins, one of them it says cull, the other one it says, I think, big and ugly, or very ugly. You can put whatever you like in there. It's your data, you upload it. So talk to the guys about how they work. But that makes it possible for you, and particularly if you're a stud operator, and you're used to flicking through multiple pieces of paper to try and find a piece of data, you can get quite a lot of data onto a screen if you're clever with the way you set it up. So that you read the tag, there it is. There's the data on that animal in front of you. They all operate with Bluetooth. So in terms of price, we start down the bottom end with the little Allflex one. Jim, what's that worth? $4.95. $4.95. And then we get through and there's steps up in through all those until you get into the sort of top end, which is around the 2 and a bit more, depending on which reader you're looking at. So talk to the guys about the different options, or talk to me if you know what it is you want to do. Part of us getting you to write that plan, before you talk to anyone about equipment, you've already got a plan for what it is you're trying to achieve. Because otherwise what happens, and this happened to me, a few years ago I was buying a set of scales for the farm that I was on, and the XR3000 was the brand new, back then, this is going back a few years, the XR3000 was the brand new indicator. It was the one that we were all excited about, and I went and spoke to the rep, and he showed me this great function in there, where if I just weighed some lambs, I could overlay 2 different price grids, and it would tell me which price grid was going to give us the most money for those lambs. How many times do you reckon I used that function? Never. At the time I was really excited by it, but that's because it had nothing to do with what I was actually trying to achieve. It was just a function in there. So if you go to them with no plan, they will show you functionality. They will show you things that it can do. Some of it will be relevant, some of it won't be. So don't get distracted by things, because they don't know. If you don't go to them with a plan, they don't know what to show you. That's the idea of filling this out, so that you know what you're trying to achieve before you start trying to tell someone else what you're trying to achieve. So we've had this explosion of readers. We've had multi-applicators come in. Shearwell with their race reader. And I talk about the race reader because a panel reader, this is a panel reader. This is designed to read tags mounted on a weigh crate or on a handler. Every one of those beeps is that tag being read. So that's it reading there. Now if I just go and set that up on a race and run sheep past it, you'll get most of them, some of them. Depends if it's a metal race. And the reason I say if it's a metal race is that metal interferes with how these readers work. So if you have a look on the outside here, you'll see there's a number, 0.3. That gives us an indication of how much power that's drawing. It also gives us an indication of how well it's reading. If I mount this up here on the whiteboard, what happened to the number? It dropped. For those of you who can't see at the back, that number dropped, and now, if I get close enough to that edge, I can get my tag to read. That's because it creates a magnetic field. The magnetic field is currently being consumed by this, and this is trying to be the antenna. So it affects the way it reads tags. So don't go and buy a reader, take it home, stick it on some metal, and then when it doesn't work, ring us up and tell us this whole thing's crap, it doesn't work. It's not actually the case. They're not designed to be mounted on metal. So when you are buying a piece of equipment, make sure you explain to any of the guys that you're talking to, whether it's in a store or any of the reps, where it's going to be mounted, and they will be able to help you find the best way to mount it. Don't just take it home and stick it on some metal and expect it to work. The other just little one, because this is an easy one for me to do, you'll hear it reading all the time there. If I come over here, any idea what just happened? It's stage fright, no, Rob. It's electrical noise coming from my projector. So basically what's happening, there's a transformer in there that's cutting power down, creating its own magnetic field, interfering with the way this works. So occasionally we can have trouble with that too. If you're trying to use a laptop with a transformer in the lead, things like that, you can occasionally have a problem. It's not the end of the world, it's something to be aware of. The main one to be aware of though, that's not designed for sheep to run past, because if they are running past, I'll just show you quickly, it depends on which way that tag is pointing. So if I hold that tag that way, it reads really well. If I turn it on its side, I've got to get closer. So depending on which way that tag is facing, at the exact moment that animal runs past and ducks its head and does everything else, there is potential for that panel reader to miss it. They're not designed to read sheet as they run past. If you look though, if this is in a weigh crate, that lamb comes in, turns its head around a couple of times, easily going to read it. That's what they are designed to do. So if you are wanting to run sheet past a reader, then you need a reader that's designed to do it. And that's where this one comes in. I'll show you in a minute, this UL race reader. I mentioned earlier the Pedigree, what's it called, Rob? Pedigree scan panel reader from Sapien Technology. Have you got one here? No? Well, I'll just talk about it then. The difference between a Pedigree scan panel reader and say something like this, if I set this up, depending on how I've got it set up, and I mount it onto I set up and I hook it up to a battery, I might have a 100 amp hour battery, I might get maybe 100 hours out of it, maybe a bit more. You take the Pedigree scan from Sapien, hook it onto a 100 amp hour battery, I'll get 120 days, thereabouts. 120 days. Set it up, hook it onto a battery, walk away. It's working, it's reading. So that's designed specifically for that task. Again, it comes back to buying the right piece of gear for the right job. The XR5000, the only reason I put that up there, new indicator, the difference in functionality of the new indicators coming onto the market is significant. They're easier for you to use. The old XR3000, and I know them inside and out, so I quite like the 3000, but again, they are a bit of a pig of a thing to use with the EID. There's so many settings to change. Gordon, who was in that video earlier, he started out with an XR3000, and the only time it got used was when I came through the gate, and I would use it for him. He changed and upgraded to the 5000, and now, as you saw in that video, not only is he doing the weighing and stuff himself, but he downloads it onto the app on his phone and emails me the file. I just get these files coming out of it, because it's much easier for him to use. We're seeing a new generation and there's more coming. So we'll see more indicators come onto the market that are going to have that same sort of functionality. That UL race reader that I mentioned, that was when we were testing it. That's sheep running as fast as we could make them run. You'll see I've got it mounted on timber so that it doesn't create any problems for the magnetic field. Did not miss a tag. Couldn't get it to miss a tag when we were putting them through. So again, horses for courses. There's a whole lot of apps coming onto the market. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it other than to say they exist. Be a little bit careful in knowing that your gear that you buy, most of it does now anyway, but we'll talk to Apple as well as Android. So just talk to the guys about that when you're looking at different equipment options. I've touched on indicators. I really don't want to spend a lot of time on them because you need to know what you're trying to achieve before you go and buy an indicator. You can spend anything from a couple of grand through to, where's Hamish? What's the TSI now? 7 grand. So you can spend as little or as much as you like. Make sure the functionality suits what you're trying to achieve and that you're not buying something you don't need. So you can take computers out into the yards. You don't have to be restricted to just using an indicator. If you really want to display a decent amount of information out in the yards, then you can take a computer system out there. So one of the best examples is where people take a TV screen. So they set their computer up, plug the computer into a TV screen. This is particularly for studs. It allows them to actually see it in a big font that they can read, which is helpful for those with failing eyesight. It helps them so they can actually see it. And you can display a massive amount of data on that individual animal in real time. Read its tag, and pretty much its whole life history comes up on the screen in front of you. So again, Practical Systems and Sapien are here today. Talk to them about it. If for those of you that are wool producers, we start looking at things like fleece testing, micron. We mentioned that earlier when Helen was talking to you about it. To do that, we start thinking about things like barcode printers and barcode scanners to be able to print a barcode and take it with the fleece. I'm going to show you that process. But the one thing I will say to you about this is if you're going to do fleece testing, seriously consider a contractor. Because fleece testing or fleece weighing is never a low stress environment. You come into the shed, we might have 4 or 5 stands ready to go. You get your reader out, you haven't used it for 12 months, and you stand there and you fiddle around with it and you try and get it to go, and then it's not linking to something, and then you say to the shearers, just hold on a minute, boys. Well, I just sort this out. How excited do you reckon they're going to be? It's one thing from a contractor point of view that you can outsource that stress to someone else. And Contractors aren't unicorns, like people think they are. They do exist. Jack, give us a wave. So Jack, you do fleece weighing. So Jack is someone who can arrive and take that stress away from you. If you want to do it, even if it's only the first year, you decide you want to get a contractor to do it. While you watch them do the process, you decide to do it yourself. He wants repeat customers, but in the meantime, it's not a bad way to do it, to at least think about it. This is the process. So this is... That's the shearer's music, not mine. This is Scott Dennis, who works with us. This is on his family farm at Birregurra. So you'll see him walk into frame in a minute. He reads the tag, it prints a barcode. Now across the back here, all he's done is just put bulldog clips, just screwed a bulldog clip onto the back of each stand so that he can pin that barcode there so it doesn't blow away. She comes in, picks up the barcode, puts it in her mouth. I'll explain in a minute why that's not a great idea. And then the fleece goes to the table. Fleece hits the table, he picks up the barcode, puts it in his mouth. That's why it's not a good idea. This is Russell Pitcher, so he has his laser scan unit, and this is in shed testing. Now, I picked the wrong fleece to do this with, so it gives me plenty of time to talk about because you'll watch them butcher it for a while here. It provides a good argument about whether you should do a skirted fleece or an unskirted fleece, because this animal is severely compromised by the fact that it is a skirted fleece that they are weighing, because you watch how much they take out of this particular one. They take out a fair bit. But it's the process that I want you to see, because this happens in real time in the shed. So once they've finished mucking around with this fleece, so they're doing a skirted fleece, no belly in the weight. So it's up to you to decide again, belly's in or belly's out. Closes the lid, pushes the button, that's now recording a weight and taking a core sample of that fleece. He reads the barcode over here, that process is done. By the time that fleece hits the table, we now know fleece weight and micron. So in an environment where we've got a micron premium, an inflection in the price and it falls within your micron range, you can actually start to split your bin lines based on micron, there and then. So the classer isn't just looking at it and making a visual assessment, it will be 18.5 or it will be 19.3. So you can actually split in your bin lines to pick up that bit of a premium. Now, when we've got a premium price, that actually helps pay for the process. For the last 5 years, I haven't been able to talk about it. I'm finally starting to be able to talk about it again because someone's starting to pay us for it again. So that's a process you can do. If wool is your game and kilos per hectare and micron are an important thing for you, you don't need to test every animal on your farm every year. You simply test your replacements as they're coming in. So at their first major shearing, that's when you test them. It gives them a relative ranking against their mates, so that it allows us to kick out the poorer performers. And then while their actual production will change over years with age, their relative ranking against their mates won't. So that's why we can get away with just doing it that once on the way through. We'll give you a chance to, if you've got questions, just yell out at any point, but otherwise I'll keep charging through and we'll get to questions at the end. Auto drafters. I spent the first 5 years telling people that we don't need an auto drafter in this job, doing this work, because unfortunately, one of the perceptions that was sold out there was that you need an auto drafter for electronic ID. You do not need an auto drafter. They're great, and the property that I was managing, one of the first things we bought was an auto drafter. It had nothing to do with EID, it was because I needed to be able to weigh a lot of sheep on my own. So I was able to weigh 350 to 400 an hour on my own with a half decent dog. So that's why we invested in it, not because of EID. There's been an explosion of them onto the market. So the great thing that happened, because Pratley had their auto drafter for a long time, then Gallagher released theirs and it kicked everyone into gear. All of a sudden, we had Pratley releasing new models over here. We had Shearwells come into the market because they entered the Australian market, and then we've got the Tapari or Racewell auto drafter as well. So you've got options out there. They all work, they all do good things. To show you what's possible with an auto drafter, if we're looking at its use with EID, all we did for this next example was we went down the race and I rattled some sheep with red on their backs, some with blue, and some with nothing. We then went along and we recorded against their electronic tag, which it was, red or blue or nothing. So that according to the tag, it tells us which one they are. Then we told the auto drafter to draft them for us. And this is what it did. So the auto drafter knows which colour's on their back because we've recorded against the electronic tag. It's sending the red ones off to the left, the blue ones to the right, and anything without a rattle straight ahead. That could be any data you can think of. It might be that anything that's had singles 2 years in a row is coming left. Or it might be that anything's got a fleece weight above, a fleece value above $50 is going right. It could be anything. In this example, we reweighed those animals a number of times to just check how accurate that auto drafter was. So we weighed them all 6 times. There's an animal up here. First time we weighed it was 74 kilos. Second time we weighed it was back down to about 58 kilos. What do you reckon happened? Because literally, it's gone from one end of the drafter around and then back through again. How has its weight changed that much? Yeah, so what was actually happening, we had sheep behind getting their feet onto the back of the platform, putting weight on. Now, it actually was happening quite a bit, but the indicator handled it really well. Overall, so apart from that one, and we fixed that problem with that auto drafter, but overall, there was less than 2% variation with an average of 0.7%. So in other words, there was bugger all difference between the 6 different weighings for each animal. It was incredibly accurate, much more accurate than I thought it was going to be. These are the bits we cut out of that first video to show you that things can go wrong. If your lead up's not right, your auto drafter won't work properly. So all this is, there's no backing device, it's a fairly straight run. You'll notice these gates aren't opening very wide, and that's because these lambs have been through a number of times and they're very keen to get in there. So it's designed so that they'll push them open. Here, the panel reader reads just as far out this way as it does that way. So right at the moment we're reading that sheep's tag, not the one in the auto drafter. That can cause you a problem. So that really should be fenced off just in that bit to stop them from getting back in there. And you can see, get out of there. Again, here we'll see another one where we just don't get the commitment to enter. And because there's no backing device, its option is to go backwards. If you don't have them single file, you'll have a lot more trouble with 2 trying to go in at once. So you have to try and make sure you've got them single file. So when I say about the panel reader, it doesn't know which way it's reading, one way or the other. It reads about the same distance out both sides. So when we get another one walk back, stand in front of that reader, we're reading the wrong animal again. And then his mate joins him. So they are just little things to be aware of when you're designing your setup. Get some help and make sure that we know what you're actually, how your setup will be run so that we get good efficient use of it. If you really want to spend more money, we can start to look at more options. So the sky is the limit as far as how much investment you want to make. People are buying handlers and handlers are a great thing from an efficiency point of view. If you have your tasks set up well enough and it's designed, it's well matched to what you're trying to achieve. So the best use of a handler I've seen was on a prime lamb operation. So in one pass, they were weighing every lamb. Those that had enough weight to go over the hooks were getting a bunghole crutch. Those who didn't have enough weight were getting a drench and being drafted off the other way. So all in one pass. Drafting, weighing, bungholing, drenching. That's good use of a handler. If you're mainly just going to use it for weighing, then my recommendation is then get an auto drafter. If your main use of it is to do particular handling, then make sure that the handler that you get is going to do the job that you want it to be able to do. If you can make good use efficiently of combining multiple tasks, then they are very good. But cost, we're starting to get up there. We're starting to head towards $30,000 or more for a handler. The one risk that we face, I've had heaps of people say to me, it's going to be easy to justify because we're going to crutch our ewes through it. And they get about halfway through day one, and then they decide it's not actually a great idea. Because one of the problems is, even if you're really quick crutching on it, there's one of you. And you compare that to when you have all of these stands running and you bang through crutching in a day or two, as opposed to standing there behind just the one of you crutching. It's not a great use of your time. So just think about how you're going to justify it. In terms of equipment, the next layer, and this is the one that's only just starting to really develop, is this sort of gear. So the AutoMed guys are here, James is here. This is a variable rate applicator. So it has the ability to apply the right rate of product based on the weight of that animal. So if you've got a handler, like we just had there before, animal comes into the handler, it adjusts to apply the right rate. Same with this Tapari drench gun. It adjusts the rate. So if you're locked into having to use expensive drenches like Zolvix and things, then you can make sure you're actually giving the right drench for the right animal. They're not cheap, so you need to make sure, again, that you're going to get the value for money out of it, and they've got different pricing structures, but just make sure that it's going to do the job for you. And you'll hear a little bit from David about, because they've got one of the Tapari ones here, so you'll get to hear how they are using it. All of the gear is compatible. So every bit of gear talks, doesn't matter whether you've got Allflex tags and Gallagher reader or True Test reader and Shearwell tags, it all talks to each other. A lot of preg scanners now are set up to be able to do the reading for you automatically as well, because there's compatibility between their preg scan units and some of the recording equipment. So it means that in that pass that they're already doing, sheep are already coming past, at the end of the day they just hand you a file that has the individual pregnancy statuses against those ewes. That's as close as we get to a free piece of data. And quite a few of the preg scanners are set up to do it. I know we've given it a fair hammering, but think about contractors. How often are you going to use the equipment? The worst cases I see are marina operations who buy an auto drafter and it sits in the corner of the shed because it gets used 1 week of the year. That's not a good investment. So think about how you're actually going to use it and start with the basics. That data that we showed you earlier, the commercial fleece data, these guys were in their late 60s, southwest Victoria. No interest in the equipment. Didn't want to try and learn the equipment. Loved the technology, didn't want to learn about the equipment. So they got a contractor in who did the fleece testing to give them fleece weight and micron. They had their normal visual classer come through. He visually classed all of the ewes, so they had that recorded against the electronic tags. They then gave the data, in this case it was actually to me, so I couldn't see the animal, all I could see was the fleece value that we created out of it. The classer saw the animal. We put it all together, gave us 200 animals out of 1,000 that they wanted to cover. They then gave that file to a contractor who arrived with a 5-way auto drafter. Now he can draft up to 700 an hour with his 5-way auto drafter. So it didn't take him long to get through that 1,000 sheep to draft them. So the bottom 200 were out based on both visual and objective measurement. And the 800 that they wanted to keep were over here. All done without those people actually buying any equipment. They just put a different tag in their ears at marking. So that's the opportunity for us if we want to think about that.
Okay, so before we move on, has anybody got any questions so far?